bringing in the more of sewage into these small tributaries. We always look at the Ganga as the main stem. I think Ganga is formulated by a very large number of tributaries. So what is happening on those tributaries? Anything which you do on these tributaries is going to affect Ganga in the real sense. I feel the problem is much bigger, and we need to really understand, and that's what we are trying to do under the consortium. We are basically trying to understand the total system, not only the main river, what is happening there, but what is causing whatever is happening in the main river, what are the factors which are causing that. So I think that understanding is a must. And then these are problems which, if we have the options created on the basis of what is the requirement of the hydropower, what is the feasibility in terms of the financial feasibility and the structural feasibility, equally important, because you cannot create a structure which might fail. So I think we have to look at all those options, and it's not something impossible that you cannot come out with the options which are win-win options and which are feasible options. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gosai, for your comments. May I now invite Mr. Goyal to comment?
Of my life, the most happy moment for me was 1960 when I got electricity from Bhakra Dam in my small village Shahkot in Jalandhar district of Punjab. We in the village did not sleep throughout the night, we just danced, and we were so happy. We will not bother at that point of time about any cost. That was the most happy moment for me. Now when I look back, now the intelligence comes. We have to differentiate what is the minimum requirement we have to meet first, and then at what cost, and how to do the trade-off and do the good balancing. When I talk of Bhakra Dam today, if you have to build again Bhakra Dam, I think it cannot be done in India. Now we know what are the other effects of the Bhakra Dam. The environmental continuity of the river is a must. I was working at BSL project in 1977 when it was commissioned. I used to erect traveling through Pandur Dam. This is no good. The river has gone dry unless the old river joins, and this situation all of us must avoid. The river should look like river all the time. Now it's good that the awakening in our country has come, and all of us jointly have to find ways and means that the river should look like a river all the time, everywhere. Basically, there are two kinds of developments in hydropower. The storage schemes with dams and two of the dam powerhouses are run-of-river schemes. These are two different kinds of developments which have two different kinds of effects on the river from all the aspects. As far as storage schemes are concerned, like Bhakra Dam, the river continuity is maintained. Hydraulical continuity is not a problem, but it has other problems of big storages, sedimentation. As far as run-of-river projects are concerned, like Nathwa Jakhadi or Kadcham Wangtu or Vishnu Prayag, we have two developments further in that where the diurnal storage is available, which can be run for a peaking station, or without diurnal storage, which just allow the river to be used for hydropower, mostly with tunnels and a power station located at a far off distance, maybe 10, 15, 20 kilometers. So in the situation where the river goes dry in part of the reach, we have to ensure the minimum releases always in the river so that river looks like a river. And that condition now is a subject of discussion, that how much water should be left in the river so that the hydraulical continuity and the environmental continuity is also maintained. I'll give you an example of Kadcham Wangtu, where Himachal government has made it mandatory to release 15% of the minimum flow from December to February all the time in the river. To start with, I would say it's a good condition. we are releasing the flows from Karchamang to project. We have made the provision in the dam body itself, and this continuity is maintained in some way. Now it is for this August House to see that the environmental flows should be to what extent. When I look at other projects where the flows are not there, so we have to find ways and means how the flows can be ensured all the time. The more important part is, as I said in the beginning, I was very happy when I got electricity in my village. Otherwise, I will only study from the kerosene lamp. Now, that is the thing we want to all have, irrespective of whatever is the cost. The trade-off is afterwards. We cannot continue living in pristine conditions. I'll be very happy if I don't have to do anything. I would have a big forest, a good river, no road. I don't want a 6-lane, 8-lane road because I want to spoil. Why should I spoil the natural environment? But that's not the way. We want to have all these things, and we have to work out a good trade-off that what is best from both the sides. It cannot be switch off, switch on condition that either we have hydropower or no hydropower. So we have to find ways and means to have a good trade-off. This is what I would like to say. The second thing I have seen in my life, why the resistance from local people is there to hydropower. I'll give you a specific example of Karchamang too. We have many provisions made there. One is the compensatory afforestation. But all of us are very lazy in our country. We have money. Money is not a problem in India. Only things don't come up with the money only. Somebody has to plant the trees, do the afforestation measures, and the things will come up. We can do it. We can do it in public-private model. But if we want to give the money to the government, and government says we'll do it, we can fatten the coffers of the government, but things don't come up. The money is not a problem from the projects, but compensatory afforestation, the project is complete, has not yet taken off in the project. The local people cannot be happy because for them, what for them? If you have made a project and the electricity goes to somewhere out, to other states, development takes place there, what for local people? So I would like to put up for the consideration of the August House that there is a provision of the royalty from these projects which the government, state governments don't spend in the development of that area. For example, there is a 12% royalty provision from any project, but if part of it, maybe 25%, maybe 3% of the total revenue is spent in doing all these mitigation measures, whether it is geomorphological connectivity, whether it is environmental connectivity, whether it is social area development. So unless the things are done in the project area where the project has come up, the things will remain in a very bad shape. So I would like to suggest that out of 12% free royalty, at least 3% should be spent for the development of that local area from all these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goel, for very constructive suggestions. May I now invite Mr. Anish Dey to give his comments, please?
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'll start with a little bit of a high-level view on the policy itself on energy. Why do we need hydropower? If we go to the track record in recent years, we are doing about 1,000 megawatts average of hydropower every year. And that, if you translate into energy terms, is the equivalent energy of a 300 or a 400 megawatt coal-based power plant. Now, we have on the average every year now about 10,000 megawatts of coal-based power plants coming up. So what difference would another 300 or 400 megawatts make? You know, do we really need hydropower for just 300 or 400 megawatts equivalent? Because the kind of impact it has is, of course, severe. So the answer is that, I suppose, from given the contemporary dynamics of energy, we don't need hydropower for baseload energy at all. What we need it for is much more on the peaking side. And for peaking energy, we don't need it hydropower just for the contribution of hydropower to meet the changing peaking demand regimes, but also more from an overall environmental standpoint. Let me just elaborate a little bit on that. In this country, we now have about good 4,000 megawatts of renewable energy coming in. Most of it is wind and solar, and they are variable in nature. So what happens is that between minute to minute, hour to hour, there can be significant differences in the generation profile. Now, hydropower has a big advantage in the sense that it's almost like a start-stop operation. In a project, you can come from zero output to full output in a matter of minutes, very few minutes. So as a consequence, the hydropower's advantages is not so much for the energy contribution, but in managing system variability, both on the demand side and the generation side. So when we look at hydropower from a policy perspective, we need to reorient our thinking and see how do we construct, what kind of projects we construct, what kind of capacities do we really need, and match it with the environmental requirements. So rather than having very large ambitions of building very large hydropower projects, maybe there are alternatives like pump storage constructed in a smarter way so that you can reuse the water while maintaining environmental flows. So what Mr. Jhunjhunwala commented earlier that we could have 40% of the flows left alone and 60% used in some manner. Maybe it's a smarter way to use that, but the energy policy of the country has never captured that reality. So as a consequence, we look at hydropower for the energy content of it rather than what it actually does to the power system. If we can come to a common ground on that conflict, then I'm sure this environmental conflict as well can be addressed in a very significant manner. That's my first point. It starts from there, but I'm also going to comment a little bit about how the entire development process is managed. Mr. Goel commented on some of those aspects. Without taking those up, let me take up the issue of basin-wide management or cascade-wide management and the practices around cumulative impact assessment. Karchamwangtoo included, but many other projects have been awarded in this country without any kind of studies. They have been awarded not even sometimes on a pre-feasibility report. Even without a pre-feasibility report, projects have been awarded. As a consequence of which you're creating entitlements in the people who've taken those rights on, put money in over there, and then coming to a point and saying that this can be done and this cannot be done. And this is not how, on a large scale, we can proceed. And when it was much smaller in terms of the scale, it could have been done. When we were not aware of things, it could have been done. When the energy content was important, such important, like as you said, for Bhakra, eliminating villages, it could have been done. But when the context has entirely changed, then I think the way we need to look at hydropower and development of hydropower needs to change. So going forward, having proper basin-wide analysis of all impact, carrying out proper cumulative impact analysis becomes very, very important. And in this context, we cannot but comment on the weak institutional structures we have over here. I mean, if you look at the Brahmaputra basin, or any of the basins for that matter, there are management boards in certain places, and those are almost defunct bodies. They hardly do anything. They are there created with a lot of, supposedly high-powered bodies, but they rarely meet, they rarely transact any business, they rarely create any kind of fundamental studies which can be used, and then basis that projects can be developed down the line. As a consequence, right from the beginning, we have no vision, no plan, wrong policy priorities, wrong development steps, and finally, when we come to everything, at the end of the day, we have created entitlements through the chain, with the developers who are putting in money, with the government which is taking money from the developers on a very large scale, and of course will be very loath to let it go. You mentioned about sharing it in the local constituencies itself. It is within the project area or just outside the project area. There are very conflicting interests. There are very conflicting interests at the district level, at the state level, and there's big conflict between the state policies and national policies and priorities. Somewhere